Welcome to the Lost Rewatch. We're on to season 5. I think this is episode 3 and 4. It's almost to the end. Not that I'm not counting it. I'm enjoying the rewatch. Actually, I'm enjoying watching season 5 because it's been a long time since I watched season 5. And a lot of it's not new to me, but I forget. I've said this like 100 times. I forget what happened in certain episodes. Oh, that's right. This happened in this episode. This happened in that episode. But anyway, I'm joined by 3 new co-hosts, Scott, Gott, and Jamie. How's it going, guys?
Good.
And what we always do the first time on here, we ask how you got into Lost. And we're going to start with Scott, who's now wearing pants.
Yes.
I know that.
You guys missed quite the show. I remember seeing the ads for Lost the summer before it premiered, and it caught my interest right off the bat because it already had kind of a modern day Twilight Zone kind of feel to it. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to give this show a shot. One of the few shows that grabbed me with the pilot, no pun intended, because there are some really great shows, the last 20th century. It took a few episodes for me to like lock in. Another pun, sorry. But with Lost, it was that first pilot, and I started telling people about it. It was a little hard to convince people to check it out. But the one good thing about that was after it had been on for at least a couple months, I would tell people, look, go back, check out the show. When you get to this episode, and I think the episode is probably Walkabout, if I recall, if you still don't want to watch the show at that point, then stop. But that's the show that I think will hook you from that point on. And that's how it's been for most people I got to watch the show.
Nice. And Gott?
Well, it's kind of odd, but my wife and I watched the pilot together, which we don't watch a whole lot of TV together. We sort of go to our own corners and watch what we like, because she likes a lot of like Dancing with the Stars and like that. I can't abide it. So this was weird that I watched this with her, and we watched the whole first season together. And then she drifted away in season 2, and I started to get lost. How you like that, Scott? No pun intended. And I hunted up on this new iPod I had at the time. I hunted up this new podcast, and it was a guy and his son doing a thing about the show, and I sort of got hooked. Matter of fact, the one guy, I'll never forget, kind of older guy, had these theories, and they used to mock him about him back in the day. But yeah, so I watched, and then I finished obviously the whole thing. So it was really fun to go back and watch 4 and 5.
Nice. Jamie Joe?
I didn't actually start the show until it was on its, I don't know, it was either halfway through the second season or starting right at the third season. We were outside, my husband and I, when we were still dating. We were outside talking to some neighbors that were really into the show. And I said, I don't know, I don't buy it. The fat guy's still fat. It doesn't make any sense. and they're like, no, we have the box sets. You need to go home and watch it. So later on that day, I was doing some stuff around the house, and I don't remember what channel used to do it, but they used to run marathons during the day of the first 2 seasons. And it just so happened there was a marathon on, and I don't know, by the 3rd or 4th episode, I was hooked in it and calling them to bring me the box set because I wanted to keep watching. So,
was it the Sci-Fi Network?
It might have been. It was like it was a not paid for cable channel.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that. It might have been Sci-Fi, or was it Versus? There was another one that used to do all kinds of marathons, but I can't remember. But yeah, we all have different stories on how we got into it. A lot of people like you, Jamie, they didn't start till like season 2 or 3. So, anyone else getting feedback?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Better? Anyway, I'll just try to ignore it. Anyway, and also Scott, with you, I know I have said this 1,000 times. The pilot hooked me right away, and there's not too many. Like The Wire, it took me like 4 episodes to get into that. Even Breaking Bad took me 2 or 3 to get into.
I think the pilot works so well because number one, it's like a complete movie unto itself. So that's, and it immediately has a cinematic feel to it. So think of like really great movies that have that amazing opening where you're hooked instantly, like Saving Private Ryan's a great example.
Right.
Which is kind of like Lost, an amazing opening that happens on a beach, with a lot of people being slaughtered. So, wow, I never thought about that before. Thesis. Anyway, yeah, I mean, and I agree. I mean, The Wire is actually the best example that comes to mind, where it took me. Actually, my guilty confession with The Wire was, Mr. TV over here. When I watched the first episode of The Wire, I was like, that's gonna be too much for me to follow. I don't want to deal with the show. And then someone had to come back to me like a season or 2 into it, said, you need to watch the show, you of all people. And they gave me all these discs of it. And I was like, all right, fine. And then I got hooked on it from that point on. But Lost was not like that. And it just became the show that every year, okay, season 2 is coming. Time to rewatch season 1. Oh, season 3, time to rewatch seasons 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. So by the time season 6, oh, it's the 6th rewatch of season 1. And
And like you said, go ahead. But like you said, Gott, you went out and thought, found podcasts. There was hundreds of podcasts on Lost, message boards. We didn't really have Facebook. It was MySpace, I think, back then. There was no Twitter. So, I mean, it was one of those shows where after you watched it, you immediately wanted to talk to people about it. So that's where, like I said, Jay came up with the idea of doing like I said, I didn't know what a podcast was. Would never have looked for it. But yeah, it's just one of those incredible, I think, once in a lifetime type shows. It just comes around and you just, like I said, some people don't like it. Some people hated it. Some people gave up on it. I'm glad I didn't. I'm sure
I don't tend to be friends with people who don't like it. Unfriend.
Jamie Joe, you have many criteria for friendship.
Exactly.
Oh, you don't like Lost? Go.
Bye.
So what if you really love the first 5 seasons and then you start to have issues? Or you still get to be friends with those people?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't got to kick you off or anything. Okay, good.
What if you're kind of like mad about the ending?
I think that's like a 50-50 no matter what. I'll defend it till the end. I've always been okay with the ending, but I can understand why some people wouldn't be.
JP asks, as J&J fans, did the podcast push you through the rest of the series? I know it pushed me through.
Yeah, I think it did. I think I would have been so twisted around what was going on and keeping track of the myriad characters and where did this guy come from again, and how do things relate. I probably would have been so completely and totally in a fog that I would have probably dumped out.
I know we had to learn to pay more attention to details because it was when Marvin Candle. We used to give Theory of the Week. Yeah, that was the second season, but it was our first time podcasting about it. And I didn't realize Marvin Candle's arm didn't move or something like that. I never noticed it. And we gave that to the Theory of the Week. And oh my God, what a nightmare that was. Oh, it was just, I go, this show, people take this show seriously. We better pay better attention to it. So
I would probably agree. While I don't think I was ever going to give up on the show because I'm usually willing to stick with most shows till the end, because I can think of too many I really hated, but I kept watching because it'll just become a hate watch for me. What was
Walking Dead?
What
Sons of Anarchy?
Sons of Anarchy, yeah.
Yeah, Dexter.
I stayed to the end.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate hate watch, right there.
Totally. I think what I loved most about the podcast was it kept me far more engaged in the show than I think I would have been. And, such as like coming up with different types of theories, speculating, trying to find people to talk to. It's like, did you watch this? We need to talk about this. Reserve 4 hours tomorrow. And then I would look forward to not just seeing the whatever episode of the week, I was like, okay, but they're gonna release a podcast probably by tomorrow. You know, and I need to listen to that. You know, I need to hear those stupid songs. You know, I need to hear it. To this day,
Next on Lost.
yeah. To this day, one of my biggest regrets is that you guys did and I told you this a couple years ago when you appeared on our little podcast thing, so you might remember this. You guys did a special Christmas time Lost themed podcast, and it was really great. Really adored it. And I actually came up with a parody song and sent it in, and you guys actually played it, which was nice because usually my stuff goes on for 8,000 minutes and God knows. But I wish to God I had a recording of it, because I was trying to remember it just the other day when you asked me to come on. I was like, I know it was a takeoff on, Walking in a Winter Wonderland, and the main character was Desmond, and I can't remember the words. And I was looking through my old notes, like, did I write it down here? I can't find it. It kills me that I can't find that old podcast recording, so I'd love to hear it.
I'll see if I can find it, and I'll send it to you.
That would be amazing.
I mean, it's not going to be easy, but I think I might be able to find it. But I loved it because we had all the special guests on there, and it was. I think it's when I finally just said, screw it, I don't care what people say. I'm just gonna be myself, because at first I was just okay. I am talking like this and all that fun stuff. But JP had one more comedy one to say. Last joke, Jack. Did you remember to watch the last episodes you're talking about tonight? And what he's getting at is we do a JP, Christy, and we do a Big Brother podcast, and we record Thursday nights. And I forgot the episodes. The episode is on Thursday night. I thought it was Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. So I get on there. I'm talking. I go, what the hell are you guys talking about? I didn't watch the episode, so. I kind of stupid.
I died. I was laughing so hard. That was great. Hysterical. It made my day.
My 14-year-old's mad at you for this because we're supposed to be watching Big Brother tonight.
Oh.
Yeah, same.
And he's like, Dad, I'm watching it without you. Because we have like a pact that we're not. And he's like, forget it. He broke it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what my son and husband are doing right now.
All right. I apologize in advance. I was going to watch it after this, but. Anyway, let's talk about the first episode, Jughead. What did you guys think about it? Anyone?
One of you kids go first. Come on.
The first like 5 times that I watched this episode, there's a lot of little ahas in there and fun little connections, like when we get Locke and Richard and all of that. But I was telling Scott this yesterday. This is my 9th rewatch. I'm actually about 2 weeks behind your rewatch. This is the first time my son has ever got to watch it. He's 10. And so I've been rewatching it with him because it's got his namesake in it. So his name is Desmond. So now he's all into it.
So he does enjoy it?
Yes, he's like every evening he's like, let's watch Lost. And I'm like, no, it's 11 o'clock at night, go to bed. So I had to jump 3 or 4 episodes ahead and watch it. And it's like, there is still a few things in there. I was like, oh yeah, this was so cool when we first got this. But now around the 9th time, I'm like, okay, yep. Yeah. But yeah, the Richard and Locke part is something that I really love.
Well, I think it's that episode where they say about Richard, how old is he?
Really old.
Really old.
Yeah. Richard is always here. So I think what Juliet says, right? Or Locke that says it. Well, one of them says it, but.
Well, for me, it was a little bit more difficult because I genuinely, or literally, whatever the right word is, haven't seen a Lost episode in 10 years. So I was a little out of my element, Donnie, So I was like, okay. And I went to go put on Jughead and, start with the previews on Lost. I was like, you know what? I think I need to go back a couple. So I just basically.
You need to go back.
I started. Yeah, exactly. I know I went back to the beginning of the season, and God, I know you went back even further than I did. Just to get my bearings. And then I watched your previous podcast, the Lost Rewatch on it. And I was like, oh, boy, that's going to be fun. But even though obviously it was a little taxing on my memory to remember certain things, Like there were certain things I just didn't remember at all. And I was like, oh, but it was like muscle memory. Stuff started coming back to me. And I basically started remembering how much I really loved this show. You know, it's like, you know, little things like, wow, the music on the show is great. It's such a great, well-scored show and stuff like that. And I did, and within a few minutes, I actually started to remember this episode. I started remembering the beats of it and whatever. And I was just identifying like things, except as I was telling Jamie, the only problem by not having rewatched all the previous, whatever number comes before this, you know, 30, 40, 50 episodes, is I wasn't sure if certain things had been revealed or not, or if you find them out in this episode, or if it's in a future episode. And I was like, you know, I was like, oh, I know that's his mom. And I was watching like, okay, it hasn't been revealed yet because we're just hinting at it now. But then, you know, but we'll be like, ooh, aha, you know, like, oh, I know that's Whitmore, but have they revealed that yet? It's like, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So my recollection as I watched it, like, oh, this is one of those episodes where it felt like there's certain episodes where I feel like things start sliding into place and you start making connections. And this is kind of one of those episodes where, you know, it starts to fill in little connections about mysteries that were about the island and about, you know, what the Dharma Initiative actually was, what the others actually were. And I kind of was enjoying that. But yeah, I would say that the Richard Alpert moments were among the highlights of the episode. Absolutely.
I was struck by a couple of things. One is, I guess the first time through, and even the first couple times I rewatched it, I had a kind of a tremendous affinity towards the season 1 cast. And outside of certain key characters like Ben and Desmond and a couple others, I really, you know, the Faradays and the Charlottes and the Juliets, I almost like resented their presence because I felt like I wasn't seeing the characters I really loved. And with some distance, it's interesting how much more intrigued I was by their storyline than I was when I originally watched it. Because before I can remember really, really honing in when it was kind of, you know, the first 12 people or whatever were on the island. And I remembered this episode right off the bat because it was kind of cool to see Desmond and Penny get their, you know, happy ending with the kid and they're happy on the boat. And, you know, it didn't last, but it was kind of a great moment, right? And the other thing that was interesting about the episode, and really both episodes, is, you know, the question kept coming up, when are we, right? And I think the first time I watched it, and even subsequent rewatches, I had a hard time keeping track of the timeline. But now, having sat through 3 seasons of Dark, this is no big deal. I can keep up with this. I don't even have to translate it out of the original German, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I hate to knock Lost, but I totally agree with that. And I was like, oh, this is like preschool.
Yeah, it's like, I'm totally following this.
Like, oh no, they bounce around 2 or 3 times. Oh no, it's a record skipping. I get it. You know,
and there's only one version of all of them, and they're not. You know, well, except for so, right?
There's a record skipping. Dark is like a DJ going like this the whole time.
What I wanted to say something before I had it written down, but I was, you know, Miles is into money. Miles loves his money, right?
Yeah.
How much money could he have made if he went to the FBI and said, I can solve 90% of your crimes in a week? I mean,
more than $3.2 million.
Exactly. I was thinking about that when he walked over the soldiers and he goes, hey, there's 4 soldiers buried back there. 3 died of gunshot wounds, 1 from radiation poisoning. And I'm like going, he could have solved, how many crimes could he have solved? He could have made people happy because, you know, some people would get closure. The FBI would be happy. I mean, the resources they would, you know, some cases go on unanswered forever. And I say 90% because some people don't know the name of the person or can describe you. They don't know, but I'm saying, but 90% of he could have solved how many murders?
He at least could have gotten his own reality TV show.
Exactly. Exactly. I did think it was funny that the 2 log carrying guys are the ones that tripped the wire.
Well, of course.
The 2 guys that don't even talk. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's 2 more guys. Because I said last week, I go, how many? There was too many people left at this point, weren't there?
Yeah, they said. I mean, I know Eloise said something like there were 20. I think there was actually more than that because it looked like a lot more. And once again, it's like, wow, this show they pump out the cannon fodder. They literally are like Star Trek with red shirts because how many people are on that plane again? Because we keep having all these people who pop up. I keep feeling if you were to add them all up from like season 1 on, it's like, you know, I think there's more than a couple hundred people here. I think there's a couple more planes worth of people on this island.
Well, they've died left and right. One drowned. One, you know, Scott and Steve, I think both eventually died. They're dying over, you know, the people that went with Locke instead of Jack. They all died, right?
That's one of my son's favorite game, is pointing to the people in the background saying, they weren't on the plane. They weren't on the plane. I mean, he's been doing it for 4 seasons.
Excellent.
And, you know, it's funny, he can point to them too and say, they weren't in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't in season 2.
He's watching for it.
But it is crazy. But anyway, when they blew up, I said, okay, that's one way to get rid of 2 more. So now we're finally getting rid of all the extras. All the extras are just going by the wayside. But I do think it was funny. They don't even speak. And they're the 2 that blow up.
Hey, I remember spending the whole entire first couple of seasons wondering how much sunblock do they have, because they should all be burnt to a crisp at this point.
Well, Sawyer had a lot, didn't he?
No, well, that's easy now.
Yeah.
So he's oiling up.
But do we again in this episode we have Locke going on his own? You know, Sawyer wants to rescue Daniel Faraday, and Locke goes, "No, I'm going to go into camp. I'll give you 10 minutes. I got to go talk to Richard."
Right.
It's typical Locke, where he just goes on his own. Is that what a leader should do?
I don't know.
Anyone?
Depends on what kind of leader you want to be, I guess. Not what a good leader would do.
Well,
I think he was just so focused, though, on what, you know, he thought he had to figure out how to get off the island to restore the timeline. And he, you know, as you were talking about last week, is he believes in the power of the island, where some of them, you know, really don't. And so he feels he's, you know, almost on a mission from God almost, right? He's going to go, and I've got to restore the timeline and that's the only thing that matters. If Faraday dies or doesn't die, I don't care. And what I thought was interesting was little subtleties in the performance. He seemed like in the early episodes, I feel like he kind of went off half-cocked when he went off on his own. And he you know, showed a confidence that didn't really exist. And here it seems like he's really very, very confident. You know, like he's very sure in his actions. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Right. I think with Locke, from the very get-go, he's always been like the lone wolf. And, you know, whether people choose to follow him or not, I don't think has been it's not been his first priority. And I also found it kind of almost ridiculous, because when he mentioned the thing about I'm the leader, that was one of those things I had to remember. I was like, wait a minute. When the heck did that happen? They're like, oh, right, Ben. That's what Ben says to him before Ben does the whole.
Yeah, you're the leader. Go ahead.
Which I always thought was like, Ben didn't say this in front of anybody. It's like the ultimate tease for Locke. Okay, just tell them I said that you're the leader, because of course they'll believe you. Which, you know, why? Why would they believe him? He keeps saying it like, you know, he reminds me of like Schrutz saying that he's the assistant to the assistant manager or whatever. It's like, why would I believe you?
Box company, paper company.
You know, we're aware of your rep, dude. You don't make great decisions. And so I'm watching this, and I was like, and again, I was someone who was a very big fan of Locke, but I was also aware that of his myriad of shortcomings, and God, you're absolutely right. You do see him have. It's not simply just a sense of confidence. He has more of a sense of purpose, because as the seasons have proceeded, he believes he understands more about the island, and whereas other people don't, because, you know, and there's a bit of arrogance to him. You know, that's one of the things he and Jack, not the other Jack, have in common.
I can take it.
Well, you know, yeah. But
he definitely has a need to be special. It's the daddy issue thing. He never gets rid of it. He's always got his mission is always about he has a destiny to accomplish something that's going to prove that he's special.
Yeah, but it's not just daddy issues. He has a mommy issue. He has a girlfriend issue. He was treated poorly in school. He was picked on school. He was in foster care and wasn't treated too well there. So yeah, he had a rough upbringing. And I've always said, he had that second chance on the island, but he still, like you're saying, he couldn't shake it. He still wanted to be that guy. Cause I don't know if you guys saw the episode. It was the first episode of the season where his teacher gets him out of the locker and he says, look, you're not going to be that guy. You're not the quarterback. You're not the this, you're not that. And he says, don't tell me what I can't do. So anyway.
I think it comes down to whereas Jack is the character who always has to try to fix everything, Locke is the character who always has to prove himself. And that's pretty much been his modus operandi, like from day one.
In the second episode, The Little Prince, there's the part where he's talking to Sawyer about how he knew they were back on the island, and he tells a story about the hatch. And how did that go? He said I thought at the time it was really important. And Sawyer says, was it? And he says, no. So it was interesting that he was even admitting that at the time, it was almost a religious thing for him when the light came on, right? And then he realized that he was totally wrong. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, wasn't it with his character? It wasn't until everything goes kablooey at the end of season 2 that Locke starts admitting he makes mistakes. Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he said after everything implodes, he says, "I was wrong."
That's it. See, I remember something.
Really, Locke, you were wrong. And people say you always pick on Locke. Without Locke, the show doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't. He's a fantastic character, but he's someone I've said. Tom Bloom, I would not follow him anywhere.
But that same theme that we were just talking about with him, everybody, well, our main cast they have their own version of that. And we see that with Kate in these episodes where he's not your son. And, when we learn that Jack has been officially suspended from the hospital and you're not a doctor.
Right.
These hard slaps of reality, as soon as they keep trying to push a narrative that wasn't written for them, there's always a slap of reality that's there to remind them, but this isn't the way it is.
But technically, wasn't Kate his mom because she raised him for 3 years, loved Aaron, he loved her back. I mean, she was willing to do anything to take. She's wasn't biologically.
Yes, by the standards of mother. Maybe it wasn't you're not his mom. I think it was you're not even related to him.
No, they said you're not.
No, he said you're not his mom.
Okay.
You're not your mom.
Because Jack said it to her, and then Ben also said it to her, correct?
Yeah. I think the lawyer said the same thing also.
Yeah, and I had read somewhere online, this is not an original thought, that they took great pains to establish Kate's relationship with Aaron in the Little Prince episode, where they first showed her on the boat holding him as a baby when they agree to lie. Then they show how shook up she gets when she thinks she's going to lose him, and then they show her being present at his birth.
Right.
So that makes when Jack, and then the other time when they said, "Well, you're not his mother," you saw why that stung. Right.
Right. But what's funny about Kate and Aaron in season 4, where they were in New Otherton, she doesn't. He's crying and Kate's hanging up laundry, and she goes, "Can you pick him up?" And she's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And now she's willing to die for him. So
parenthood's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yes. But that's but that's what I was trying to say. I took offense to that line.
Right.
I didn't like it.
And like David was saying that they went through a lot of trouble to show us that really wasn't
right
where they wanted us to go with it. But we wanted to feel like we should be able to defend her.
Right.
But nonetheless, she was getting those slaps left and right.
Yeah. She wasn't as cocky as she was before. I don't think she wasn't, because Kate on the island would have just said, "Screw you! That's my son. get away from me. But she had Jack saying, we have to go back, all this different stuff. We have to go back. And it could be argued whether they had to go back or not. But
yeah, there's always been some shakiness with that because, like recreating the whole thing to get back. And I was like, well, if you're going to recreate the trip back, don't you need all three? How many people were on the original Flight 815? I don't remember right now.
240 something, I thought.
Some big numbers. I don't know if it's one of the numbers. I know it's one of those big numbers. But now it's a plane going back with what, 6 or 7 people? It's like, no, it's already not a recreation because you've got way less people. So
plus they're not going to Guam.
Right.
We know that.
Getting back to the Kate thing, I also thought it was funny, and this is actually one of the things that kicked in memory because I was like, oh, this is about the Little Prince episode. The whole situation with the lawyer and the demands of making, and I remember this at the time, and I remember talking to someone about it the very next day, and we were going, I don't think that's actually legal. That you can't actually do some of the things that are happening here. It's a dramatic TV show, and plus the guy could just be lying and bluffing anyway because he is working for Benjamin Linus.
Right.
But I kept thinking, no. I could think Kate has had so many run-ins with the law. She probably should know the law herself at this point.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can force someone to have a blood test if they haven't committed a crime.
There's that, and you also can't keep the client secret if they're demanding that.
Right.
Attorney-client privilege does not extend to something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to have a reason to know. You would have to be asserting that you're the child's parent or something.
Right. Challenging custody and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, because what standing would Ben Linus have to march into court to say, we want the blood?
Well, I mean, the only reason why it's fine is because at the end of the day, we find out it's Benjamin Linus is behind it. I was like, oh, okay, because then the whole thing was bull to begin with because you're working for the most deceitful person on the face of the earth, just about. But if he had been working, say, for Claire Littleton, then I would have been like, wait, hold it, stop. I'm calling Perry Mason now.
I do like how Ben said to Jack after he goes, "Sorry, Jack." Jack was like, wait, what? Jack got duped again. I did want to talk about the Jughead, the bomb, because it's on this wooden structure. And we just kind of swaying back and forth on this wooden structure. And I'm thinking, is that the most stable structure you could have put that bomb on?
I have an internet fact on that structure.
Oh, do you?
I have
that structure was. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I've spent more time than I probably should in my head trying to think of how they built that structure around this, and then I have these visions of the Roadrunner and Coyote and the bomb actually the structure already being there, and then the bomb landing right into the structure, and way too many minutes of my life spent going, I don't know. I just thought it was weird the first time I saw it, and still now when I look at it, I'm like, there's just this. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, that was one of the things that captured me about the episode. I was like, maybe you guys remember or you've seen something else. Has there ever been an explanation for that structure?
Well, I found one on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to hear the explanation for that.
The internet contends, and they say that it was based on an original design proffered by the Manhattan Project, and they actually built the set.
Well, I think it's true. I think it's true, but
based on that design, as a matter of fact, it further went on to say that Jughead was the name of a real bomb that was scheduled to be tested in 1954 and never was.
I think I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
The Jughead part I'm aware of. So wait, is the contention that that structure was put there by the military for the bomb? Is that what we're saying?
They didn't say one way or another. It was a set note that the set was designed to mirror this design that the Manhattan Project had put together.
Okay. Because
presumably, if the military was going to explode the device, they would follow the way the Manhattan Project people told them to do it.
See, my assumption, which probably is incorrect on it, at least at the time when I first saw it, was this was when they were doing atomic bomb tests, as they did back in the 1950s, and this essentially was a bomb that essentially hadn't exploded, like a dud, except it still has that radioactive material in it. So therefore, it wouldn't. So did they go and then build the structure and put it up there, but then not take the bomb with them? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's. I guess it's
I assume the others happened, or somebody on the island came.
Because Richard does say they killed all the soldiers.
Right.
So they were getting ready to test it, and then it goes with historically it was never exploded.
Right. Oh.
I don't know.
I just look at the structure going, yeah, that one strong wind, that thing's coming over.
Well, it certainly didn't look like Amish people had built it, so
No.
with mighty wood pegs.
I think it bugged me the first time around. Probably talked about it on the podcast. I don't remember. It sounds like something I would complain about, but I didn't like the structure then. I don't like it now. I did like the scene between Desmond and his son, and as we find out, his son was named Charlie. I'm assuming it's named after Charlie. But I thought it was he's talking about an island. We're thinking he's talking about the island, but no, he's talking about England, and he says Scotland and all that different stuff. And Penny's watching. And then, of course, Penny goes, what Penny said, this is where I met your mom. And he goes, well, it wasn't always, I forget what she says, but basically she says, well, it wasn't always perfect.
Yeah, it's also where you broke her heart.
That's right. Yeah. I was like, well, we all make mistakes, Penny.
Rub it in.
You say that in front of your son?
Sorry, brother. Actually, that's one of the things I totally forgot when I put the episode on, when it opens with her giving birth, and I was like, oh, I forgot they had a kid. I totally forgot about that. So I was paying close attention to it and everything you were saying, Jack. And did you catch that little line they slipped in there? It's almost like a subliminal kind of foreshadowing when he's talking about Scotland. He says monster and deep locks.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's going to be season 6. There's going to be a monster.
Well, I do like how because I forgot that was the scene where she is having the baby. I go, he's running, looking for a doctor. What is something already happened with Widmore? Is he, or Ben? That was what's going in my mind. I go, oh, that's right. Penny's delivering. So, and did the doctor really do anything?
I don't know. That doctor was so sterile, didn't he?
After watching like 4 seasons of Call the Midwife, I really feel like this doctor was bogus. Like he didn't do nothing. He just ran in there and started yelling to push. We could have done that. Desmond could have done that.
That's one of my wife's favorite shows, and I've seen probably half the episodes. It's
yeah. I feel like now that I have my honorary midwifery, I should not have to watch poor reenactment of labor in these shows.
He left Penny, and there's blood and stuff, but he gets there by the time the baby's out. I mean, he could have. I don't know. I didn't think he was much of a doctor, but
no.
Did anybody else think it was weird that Faraday, with all of his, extensive learning and stuff, just scrambled right up the structure and started touching the leaking nuclear device?
Yeah.
I mean, just I don't know. I mean, even in a perfectly safe situation, would you be able to put your hand out and touch a nuclear bomb?
Not one that's.
No, but even assuming it was safe, and but is that something you'd really want to touch?
No,
well, and that scene, I don't know if you guys have ever thought this or played this game, but I feel like every episode of TV ever written, every movie ever made, there's the one line that just did not need to be there. Didn't need to be there. And that on this was, what are you doing? I'm examining the bomb. Clearly.
He had his stethoscope out and he's...
See, I thought it was sarcasm.
Well, I'm thinking before he told her Eloise about firing the bullet. I'm thinking, I go, well, you can't shoot him. What if you miss? Even if you don't miss, anyway. I know it was the 50s and they weren't as they didn't have the internet and they didn't know things like this. But
it is kind of funny though that this entire thing is happening with his mom. And he's talking to her like a jerk teenage son would talk to their mom.
Well, to be fair, she does kill him.
Yeah, she's got it coming. She earned it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how whatever insidious one might say that Eloise and Widmore turn out to be, decades later. but the younger versions of both them, I can't use the word I want to use, but no, I guess they're both real Richards. I kept thinking like, wow, you're really
Yep.
a-hole. Can I say that? I'll say.
Well, Whitmore kills the other guy because he's talking.
Yeah.
And they end up finding the camp anyway.
What was the point?
Because the bald people can't track. So, that's what Whitmore said. So I'm just saying, throwing it out there because bald people are stupid.
The sodding old guy.
Yeah.
So it's like he doesn't have a big white beard. No, she's talking about.
I just thought and then of course Locke doesn't shoot him. Why didn't you shoot him? He's one of my people. No, he's not.
I'm sorry. That made me. That was one of those lines that did make me groan because then like, no one's your people. Shut up, Locke. Sorry.
and Sawyer's like idiot. What else? Oh, then we do have the part where Faraday tells Richard that he's in love with Charlotte. Nice, I guess a nice scene.
I mean, if you like Charlotte. Faraday's great. I'm so glad that he's in love. It's just disappointing it's her.
She's not a big Charlotte fan, huh?
No. And I try to be. Every single time I've rewatched, I'm like, I'm going to give Charlotte a chance. No, not really.
Could they have done without Charlotte? Because I thought Miles worked great. Faraday worked great.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's part of it. Miles and Faraday are both such great characters, especially coming in this late into the series. She just never, her character, whether it was the way she was written or the actress herself, just it was never a puzzle piece that needed to be, there.
Well, to go right along with what you're saying, basically Miles and Daniel are, even in their brief appearances, they're still fully fleshed out characters.
Right.
Whereas more often than not, Charlotte feels more like a plot device. She's there, and in this situation, she's there more to support the character of Daniel. She becomes an aspect of him rather than her own character. And when you have a character written that way, regardless of whether we like her performance or not, because you can only do so much. I don't dislike her. But I have no opinion of her, which is just because I have very definite opinions about most Lost characters. So she just well,
and I think the little bit of backstory that we get of her being there when she was younger, I don't think it's necessarily as endearing or as important as the story we get with Miles and his connection.
Right.
She just was never given the chance to even compare to Faraday or Miles in that grouping, and I just don't think she ever found her place in the show.
Well, they were both so important, Miles and Faraday, to the story.
Yes.
Whereas, like you're all saying, like everyone's saying, Charlotte was just like, okay, Charlotte. Because even Frank Lapidus.
Yeah, he's like instantly likable, though. I mean, that's just that's when you get a solid actor and you throw him in anything, you're going to like him in anything he's in because he is who he is.
Right.
So I can see your point. Yeah, Charlotte, go ahead and die. We don't need.
Yep.
You.
She's basically there this season just for the nose bleeding. It's like, all right. Well.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And so I remember when we were watching at the time, I think we did, because the episode before we see young Whitmore, and I think most people had it figured out then that before they told us, we had figured out it was Whitmore, right? From what I remember, I think we all. So it wasn't like a big, oh my gosh, reveal.
No.
I loved the nice to meet you, though. That was fun.
Yeah. Are you Charles Whitmore? Yeah, what's it to you? Still always the cranky guy. I do like that Desmond barged into his office and was completely different than the other time he had dealt with Whitmore.
Right.
He goes, what about my daughter? I haven't seen her in 3 years.
Nah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Way to be a jerk.
You're going to tell me, you're going to tell me the address. You're going to tell me this. And then he goes.
I think that even though it hasn't been, in a lifespan. It hasn't been that long since these shows aired, really. But how much it's starting to age itself, because he pulls out like an actual paper book to look up the address, and that just cracked me up. I was like, yeah, that just would not happen anymore. And every time we see them with their like little razor flip phones, like, oh, I remember that.
Well, as an older person, though, sometimes we're resistant to we resist technology.
That handle change. No,
I mean, sometimes I'll go, but it has been a while since I looked at an address book, so.
He's got this like pretty. I mean, it looks like it's probably pretty expensive, real leather. It's flashy, but
who wants to get rid of it?
They still make them. They still have them. It's amazing.
It's just so awkward.
You remember the episode in Seinfeld where Elaine had that, where Kramer gave her that organizing thing, and it just kept beeping and beeping and beeping.
Yeah.
I guess I just can't look weirdly at like 100 years worth of TV show and film. So bothered by it. I'm watching these 2 episodes. I remember thinking, I wish when you started the rewatch, I would say, Jack, do me a favor. Keep track of every episode. How many episodes end with someone looking confused or shocked? Like ending on someone's expression, like. Because I watched like 4 episodes, and I believe at least 2 or 3 of them have a.
Well, it always had that soap opera feel to it.
Yeah,
it had a little Dallas, a little Knots Landing, little Falcon Crest, and of course all the daytime soap operas that you have to have that look to be in a soap opera actor. You have to have that.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, on one hand, pretty much all the shows that we talk about all the time, they're all forms of serialized storytelling, which serial soap operas, kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, it's almost the over the top nature of always ending on that look, like
And this show was the worst because remember it would take breaks, and you'd be like, wait, they're off for 3 weeks. We got to wait 3 weeks to find out who that person is. Come on.
That didn't help the show actually at the time.
No, it did because I think they would save certain episodes for sweep weeks, which I'll never understand why it's so important to have episodes do better during sweep weeks than other weeks. It should just.
That's how they set the ad rates.
I get, but it's like, to me, if the show, but like Scott said, when you're people that weren't, dedicated to the show are like, oh, screw this, I am done. And so they were losing viewers towards the end.
Wasn't it later in the run of the show they just, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm thinking of, because I know there's another show that did this as well. Didn't they start it later so they could just run them consecutively without having gaps anymore?
Yeah, they started putting them in February. I think that
was it. Because I know like 24 did that as well, because that was another show like, well, it's 24 hours. You can't keep breaking it up. Then it's like 48 hours.
Because season 3 was 6 episodes, and then they stopped until February.
Wasn't that the writer's strike though?
Writer's strike, I think, was season 4.
Because it's short, right? Yeah, it was because it only had 18 episodes.
And a lot what happened because I remember after into season 3, we got to go back. We had to wait like 9 months to find out. It wasn't like, okay, all right, we can wait 3 months. It was 9 months. We had to wait back. Wait, what are you talking about? We have to go back.
Well, you're looking for the own. It takes a while to get back. So it's 9 months.
But anything else we want to talk about in Jughead? Is there? We covered it all. Because it ends with Charlotte's nosebleed, and I think Daniel Faraday does give that look like.
I think he gives that look in every episode he's in. I could put him on. It's like, oh yeah, this is what Jeremy Davis was doing on this show. He kept doing this look.
He is he does play quirky characters. That's
yes, he does.
Because he's great and Justified too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Is that season 2?
Season 2 and
Martindale season?
Yeah, he might be in season 3 a little bit too.
I don't remember. Did we first see the van with Ben? Is that in Jughead or is that in The Little Prince? I'm just because I'm watching back to back. I think I might confuse details.
I think the van we see in the Little Prince.
We only see okay.
Yeah.
Because I just remember when I think again watching the show for the first time in 10 years, and I was looking at when we see like the funeral part, I was like, oh yeah, this is the thing with anagrams, and like rearranging letters, like oh they're so silly.
And talk about cliffhangers we have where Locke's trying to get the information on how to move the island, and then the island flashes again. No.
Right.
That's great.
And he gives him the compass.
Right.
To give to himself.
Yeah. Remember, you won't remember me. I won't remember you. And I won't remember you. I think that's what he said because Locke gets shot by Ethan. And Ethan was gonna shoot him. And of course, Richard had that great line. He goes, well, what goes around comes around. Because they shot Ethan. So, all right. Now the Little Prince. What do we have to say about this one?
I'll say that for an episode that devoted a lot of time to Kate, it's a really good episode. Because I always remembered Kate episodes being the episodes I'd be like, oh God, it's a Kate episode. Oh no, Eggtown, no. But with this one, I think because there was such an air of mystery of what was going on with the Oceanic Six and who's trying to take away the kid. And I was like, oh my God, Claire Danes' dad from My So-Called Life is trying to take away her kid. That's horrible.
Is that what he was in?
Yeah, that's what I read.
Like, where do I know this guy from?
I was like, he always plays dads. I think he's a dad on like Desperate Housewives too, or something like that. I probably shouldn't know that. But
I watched it for a while.
This one, and even though I did like Jughead, The Little Prince, maybe it's because it starts to involve all of our more beloved characters that we're especially those of us who haven't been watching it anymore. Like, oh, there's Ben, there's Jack, there's Sayid, there's Hurley. They're all in this episode. It's like it's a jam-packed all-star crowd here. So it was, as much as I did like Jughead, this one just raised it up like 17 more notches.
Oh, so you didn't like Jughead?
I like the Jamie's the one who doesn't like it. Her over there. But
I forgot to ask you guys if you because I liked it. I thought it was a good episode. But Scott, you were like okay with it. Jamie, you hated it?
No, I don't hate it. It's
Charlotte
not one of my
in the
favorites.
episode.
Definitely not one of my favorites.
Okay.
But this one, I'm with Scott. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember this episode. I've seen this a few times. And then when this one came in, I was like, oh yes, I forgot this was the next one. I really like this one. So,
Scott, did you like?
Totally unanimous. I thought, Jughead was average. I think it was necessary to move the plot along. It kept my interest. There was enough going on. But The Little Prince is, in my opinion, just a much better episode. From pacing, there's more going on. There's the initial mystery. I mean, there's Ben pulling the string of literally all of these people to try to, once again, to get them to do his will. Yeah,
I gotta, at some point, I stop believing people. If you keep lying to me and, manipulating me and all that different stuff, eventually I go, all right, I'm done with you. How does anyone, especially Jack, how do you believe Ben?
Because Ben told him something he already thought he knew. We have to lie to protect the people, right, who are back on the island. So he felt some responsibility for the people left behind. So he was totally susceptible to you got to go back to make it right.
Which I get.
That Ben was making.
Ben
knew his personality well enough to know that he'd buy into it. Just the same way he knew that the only way to get Kate to move was to put fear of losing Aaron out there. And he underestimated Hurley so bad he didn't even think he needed a plan. I was walking and tell him he's going. And then, Hurley runs out the street and gets arrested, right?
Yeah, it's funny that Jack, you were just saying how could anyone believe Ben? And what have we said about, or back in the day, what did we used to say about Lost from day one? Hurley's kind of the stand-in for the audience. So Hurley being the audience, we are saying, why would we ever trust him? He's the one guy who's like, no. Even after he hears everything, you think, oh, Ben's pulled it off yet again. The master manipulator, like, nope, he'd rather go to prison.
I killed those 3-4 guys, whatever it is.
Whoever did, I did it.
Then he calls Jack, I'm in lockup. Everything's cool, dude.
I mean, I mean, Jack is the easiest one to see why he will buy so easily into it, even though obviously he shouldn't, because as we've seen since Jack has gotten back, he's been adrift. You know, and it's kind of, before when I was mentioning that, like Locke found his purpose and that's what's driving him. Jack doesn't have that. He's searching for that. Ben essentially is kind of throwing him a lifeline, and he just runs with it. And regardless of the fact that this is a guy who is like the king of all liars here, but you want to believe, so you lock Ben in your little compartmentalized denial drawer there, and you just go, ahead of it, because everyone else has great reasons not to believe Ben and not to want to go along with this.
Because even Kate, when she sees it's Ben, is looking like, what the hell?
Yeah. It's like,
and Kate goes, it's okay. We're working together.
And Kate's like, wait, he put me in a cage? Maybe you don't remember that?
He tried to kill us. I don't know.
But you're right. Ben gave Jack a purpose. I think there's something to that. He gave him a reason to get out of bed in the morning. He wasn't a doctor anymore. He didn't have anything going in his life. And then here comes Ben to, fill in the preconceived notion that he owed some sort of debt to the people he left behind on the island.
Right.
And that filled him with a purpose. And right.
Well, and Jack's obsession is to fix things. So he's like, this is how you fix it. And it didn't matter what he said after that. If he just said, this is how you fix it, whatever came after, he was going to do.
Right.
We talked about.
Do you think anything?
Go ahead.
I mean, would he have?
I don't think that he would have
killed the baby.
Killed,
was he that?
Killed the baby or killed Kate. But I think he would have tried to find a loophole where he didn't have to do that in order to continue on.
Because we talked about this a few episodes ago, and I always said, well, Jack always felt guilty that he didn't listen to Locke. Why would he ever listen to Locke? Locke did everything in his power to make his job as, Locke tells him, you need to be the leader. And then, of course, Locke did everything he could to undermine him as the leader. And how many times was Locke wrong?
There's a weird balance between the two of them, though, that they keep going to the opposing side. They keep switching places. And the entire time, the right place, as we see after finishing the series, is where Hurley is, which is right in the middle. Sometimes it's magic, sometimes it's not. And until they could see that, like at the end, when everything was already said and done, they were always on the wrong side.
But I would never have felt guilty for not following Locke, because if I'm Jack, I am Jack, but if I was that Jack, I wouldn't have felt guilty.
I wouldn't have felt guilty about it if Jack said my name, because he can't say anyone's name without being condescending. And in a real life scenario, the way Jack would talk to people on the island alone would be why people would go with Locke. Period. It'd be like, this guy's jerk him out. And that's all it would take.
We see season 1 where he has terrible bedside manner.
Right.
Even his dad pulls him aside and said, hey, you got to be better at this.
Yeah.
His dad, as big a jerk as he was, had a better bedside manner than his son.
Yes.
So they both had flaws, but I'm just like, me personally, if I'm Jack, I'm like, I don't feel guilty about it. Of course, the show doesn't work unless he does.
Well, I mean, I don't usually take it to the whole thing about people being flawed, because, and I know I was listening to that being a point of discussion on your last vidcast podcast, because inherently everybody's flawed.
Right.
So that's why I don't buy into the whole, we took these people here because they were flawed. It's like, well, the entire earth are filled with flawed people. But going to what Jamie was saying, I'm kind of, I think of it that way. I think of Jack and Locke more representing the two extremes. It's kind of like they set up the analogy early in, was it season 1 with like black and white, kind of thing. That's them, black and white. It's the shade of gray in between is where you find the sweet spot, where you find the true path, and that's like you were saying. That's where Hurley is, and that's what event. But the problem, we see it, whether it be in fictional or you see it in real life, when you deal with people who just stay on the extremes, they're always going to be at loggerheads with each other. And that's why, even though, maybe the show originally set us up to think, oh, it's going to be Jack versus Sawyer because they both left Kate. No, it's about Jack versus Locke, as we see when we get to the final episode, because they're the two extremes.
But I do like, because I've been saying from the start of this rewatch that Sayid would have been the better leader.
I can't disagree.
He thought things out, not emotionally, except when Shannon died, but he thought things out logically, and he just would have been the better leader, or Rose.
Yeah, but I mean, and Sayid was rarely wrong. Was there ever a time where he would say, "I'm concerned about this being a problem," and he was wrong? Like, I think he had a pretty good handle of what was going on this weird, crazy island with polar bears. He figured it out.
Right.
Yeah, I think I would have trusted him more than either of the others.
I think I would have went with Vincent first.
And Naveen Andrews, I've always said that Damian Lewis would make a great James Bond, but I'm changing my opinion. I think Naveen Andrews should be the next Bond.
That would be cool.
Yeah, he was bad in this episode for sure.
Yeah, he was definitely, he's just very, and the guy saying, bring your meds. He goes, I think you have the wrong guy. And then, he turns around, dart, and he's not there.
Yeah, right.
He just,
there's,
and he has great hair.
He has amazing hair. The amount of
look at this color company here.
The amount of mistakes that were made in this episode. I was trying to think back, like last week when you were doing your film, like the film blunders. There is a ton in this episode. I didn't write them down, but you can go online and look it up. There's a long list of errors. A lot of them with hair. But it's kind of funny. Now I kind of want to go back and watch the
little prince.
Yeah, in the episode and see all the different mistakes that they made in both of the episodes. Really, there's a lot of hair problems.
And what do we think about? Son gets a box of chocolates, and you never know what's going to be inside it.
Yeah, like that is a weird looking chocolate.
Yeah, but she has the gun, and it's like, what has happened to Sun? She just wants revenge for Jin's death, alleged death. We should say.
Well, in the photos of Jack with Ben, right?
Yeah, and she blames Jack, right?
And I guess you have to assume Ben sent it, right? Isn't that's what we were to think?
I would think so, yes.
Because he knew what would drive her to show up,
right? Which
would be to shoot him in the head.
Right, and and murder's like 25 to life, so 25 to life is a box of chocolates. So there you go.
But Sun became just a badass, off the island. She just, she goes up to Widmore a few episodes ago, and just, might have been season 4, but she doesn't back down from him. She talks, I think it was second episode this season, where she just tears into her. She buys his majority stock in his company. I'm running it now, and his dad's just like, her dad's she was afraid of. She's not afraid of him anymore.
Right. I think my recollection is that she was one of the characters who had one of the more dramatic changes in her arc. She went from being the kind of cowed wife, timid, whatever, and to this. I mean, to use a horrible, oh God, I can't believe I'm even going to bring the show up again. A horrible parallel. It kind of reminds me a little bit. I mean, Sun needs to kill like about 100 people to accomplish this. Kind of reminds me of like Carol in season 1 of Walking Dead, where she was like the scared, abused housewife, whatever. And then, over the course of a few seasons, all of a sudden she became like the biggest badass of them all. Sun right now.
Okay, anyway.
And when you watch this episode, it's like, I think I'd rather have Sun backing me up than Kate. I think Sun's going to get stuff done.
Well, that's what I said. Kate has changed. She's
a mom.
She's a mom now. But
They both are.
Son's a mom too.
Yep. Yep.
But
They
Kate,
both are.
but the difference is, her husband, Son's husband, got killed. Kate was used to killing, ex-boyfriends and stuff. So,
but the thing is with
Son's
Son
also got other
too,
people to watch the kid. So there's that.
the thing is with Son too, though, is that she kind of always was the same person, just not for her dad and not for Jin.
Yeah, she did kill Khalid on the boat.
And in early episodes where we meet Jin, when we find out about Jin's birth mother, and she's like, "Nope, we're not doing this."
That's true.
So
yeah.
she always had that there, but for her dad and for Jin, that's where her maybe it's a culture thing, but she started to kind of break free of that on the island, and she showed them what the rest of us already saw her being.
Right.
Maybe Jin dying, seeing your husband get blown up was the final straw, and then she just wasn't going to take it with her dad or anybody else anymore.
Right.
Going back to the start of this episode, go ahead. You have something, Scott, about it?
No, I was just agreeing with what Jamie and the Gotster were saying, that she basically was suppressing her actual nature because of these two very strong, almost authority figures in her life. And it does have something to do, as I think they made clear in some flashback episodes, it is a culture kind of a thing. So I think the island kind of freed her from that, and also her husband, getting blown up as well.
I forgot to mention the beginning where Kate and Jack are talking. Kate comes out with Aaron, and Kate was really talking about Sawyer and all this stuff about Sawyer, and Jack's like going, again, because as we remember, Sawyer gave Kate a big old kiss before he jumped off the helicopter. So it's got to be fresh in Jack's mind. And then Jack says, "Well, we need to lie, Kate. Are you with me?" And Kate goes, "I've always been with you." I'm like, really?
Did you read that as a?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Did you read that as a relationship comment, or I was always following you as a leader?
But she did.
I thought, that could have been interpreted two different ways.
Yeah, it could have, but I was like, my first thought was like, no wonder Jack's is on drugs and all this stuff like that.
I thought it was a funny little conversation, because she said, I took it as I've always sided with whatever it is you want to do. I'm on your team. But on that same thing, it's kind of funny because he said, you're going to need to tell them to do this because they're going to listen to you. And right. In that moment, we see Jack is like, I am not the leader. You could see him letting go of that. I'm not the leader I thought that I was going to have, I thought I needed to be. And I don't know, in that same conversation, she's like, I've always followed you. So it's like she's the only one that ever actually listened to him.
She followed him
with real faith.
She followed him. Was it the hunting party where they go after for Michael, and then she's not supposed to go, but she still followed him anyway?
20 minutes later, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, she's always following him. But my first thought was like, geez, Kate, give the guy a break.
Yeah, I thought they deliberately scripted the line to kind of be, even though I think it's more likely about following him as far as being a leader, it's deliberately ambiguous so we can kind of have fun reading it, because that way we know Jack will read it the other way as well. That's why I think the line was designed that way.
And the part I like, this will make Jamie happy. Charlotte's still out. She's still out cold.
Bleeding too. Still bleeding.
Yeah, hush, hush.
You can almost start to see a relationship between Sawyer and Juliet.
Yes. And in that moment when she's out for 10 minutes, I find it weird that they're all just sitting there staring at her for 10 minutes. They're not walking around or going, I don't know what to do, picking up a rock and throwing it into the jar. They're all staring at her for 10 minutes.
Well, they did get water.
Creepy.
Niles did, right?
Miles brought water to Daniel. He goes, thanks. And all he's doing is put a little water on her cheek. I'm like, she's got blood all over her face. Can we wipe that off too?
They're all like staring like you've got a spot like that.
Yeah, but I just said, is this going to bring her back? I mean, wouldn't you put the forehead and just keep putting?
Maybe the entire thing was a setup just so that they could put in a Miles line.
Okay, because Miles was, like his line was, "Oh, she's waking up," because Sawyer was actually talking to Locke at the time. So yeah, I just thought that was a weird scene. I go, yeah, I would at least wipe the blood off if you're not going to put the cold towel on her head. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think this was doing it.
It was a really weird 10 minutes. I feel like they could have all used that 10 minutes to do something far more productive.
Yeah.
Well, Juliet did say to Daniel, I can't help her unless I know what's going on. You know what's going on. Well, I really don't. Well, yeah, maybe. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It was a funny scene.
Yeah, there was something really awkward about the staging of it, and I was thinking that, I think when they wrote this scene, they didn't really think that out too clearly. That they would have. I think in retrospect they would have blocked it out differently so that we just maybe wouldn't have seen certain people. And we would have been like, maybe they're off peeing somewhere. Who knows? But as opposed to the awkward setup that they left us with.
Yeah, it just bugged me. Like I said, I didn't get the. Miles, he ran to the stream to get the water, and they didn't really use the water. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you're knocked out, I mean,
they should have asked Sawyer just to slap her like he slapped Faraday in that early.
Well, I did say because you have Juliet was being a calming force to, it's like because Kate would have yelled at Sawyer, just shut up, but Juliet said, James. Be calm. You can't go off. She's being almost like, like his wife would do it. Like you expect, someone who cares about you to say, hey, she wasn't like, because Kate would, like I said, most people on the island would have screamed at Sawyer. Juliet was a very calming way.
She is great for every situation. I think in the end, like in the incident, I think that's one of the reasons why the scene of her like falling down into that, it's the first falling down into the pit or whatever. It's the first time we've ever seen her character lose that calm. She's always so calm and her voice is always so soothing. And even when she's being sarcastic or she's a little bit upset, there's just this really steady, calm roll about her voice until that scene when her voice is cracking and she, you know what I mean? I think that's part of the reason it gutted us so much.
Or when she's burning muffins, then she gets a little. I do remember that.
Everybody upset.
I came up with a theory last week, and it was some conversation was going on, and it was because we know Ben didn't want Juliet to leave the island because he was in love with her, and we see the scene a few episodes in where Juliet is just upset because the women on the island keep dying, and she can't figure out why. So we'll never know, but was Ben killing the women? Because she seemed to think she knew what was going on, but she says, I don't know. I think the line was, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's wrong. I can't help them. And Ben just said, there was a line where Ben goes, so I always wondered if Ben was killing the women just to keep Juliet there.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Right.
If Sun would have stayed longer, we would have had a better idea.
Right. Anyway, I just brought it up.
That is not a far-fetched theory for you. That's not. I didn't remember a few that maybe. That's not bad.
Maybe one or two. I don't know. There was something else I wanted to talk about in this episode. I'm drawing a blank on it. So come up with something, guys.
Well, how about the scene with Hurley and his mom? I mean, I thought that was a great scene. First, she walks in and she says, "Why is there a dead Pakistani on my couch?"
Oh, you mean which was the episode before?
Was that the one before? Am
Yeah.
I crossing back and forth?
Yes.
Well, that was a cool scene anyway. Well,
because he makes it sounds like a made up story, and she goes, "I believe you."
right. And then,
I don't understand you, but I believe you.
We find out Miles is also bleeding. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. They find the Ajura bottle in the in what are they called? Canoes.
The outriggers.
Outriggers. Now, I've said this. I think I said this the first time I saw it. You have two outriggers. Somebody. A lot of people are there because there's two outriggers. Why don't you take both outriggers and just at least push the other one out so they can't use it?
Or shoot a couple holes in the bottom of the other one.
We don't want to shoot holes because it'll bring attention. The other one's guns. But do something that's gonna
take the oars.
When I was watching the episode, and it was around the point where they got to the beach and we see the canoes or outriggers, whatever. That was when it's like, oh, this is that episode. Oh, like top 5, top 3 mysteries that weren't quite solved, but we all have a theory for thing unlost. I was like, which is what made this episode like, oh, I spent so much time talking about those goddamn outriggers and who was in the other boat.
It was never answered. So
it's never. So
what are your theories on?
Why don't you guys go first? I talk too much.
I don't have a theory on it. I don't know who.
You don't have a theory?
I don't know who is that. I don't know who it is. It could have been the people shooting the arrows at him, the hostiles, or.
Well, I remember at the time
been shooting arrows when they were chasing him, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, but we I think at least with the flaming arrow stuff, we assumed that was the others or whatever we call it. I think I wasn't really that concerned about that. My feeling was because we're dealing, as some folks know, I love timey-wimey stuff. It's my favorite thing. It's good or bad, whatever. I immediately thought, oh, that might be them, or a later version of them on the other boat. Conceivably it could be other losties, maybe not specifically these guys, but I think it's more interesting to think that it might be actually be them and not realizing that they're shooting at themselves somehow. Right. I don't know how you work that out, but I just kept thinking that would be the big reveal. And I remember waiting for that reveal. Instead, we get a reveal about a totally different boat. I'm definitely going to talk about that, I'm sure, because I've got issues. But I remember back in the day, that was my first thought. It was them. Watching it again, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if that really makes sense now. Plus, I also know I'll never get answered.
Well, and when were they when that scene happened?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Their camp was there though, right?
Right.
That's right. So that kind of narrows it down.
So it had to be after the flash, right? After the island moved.
I would think it would have to
I
be.
think so because of the water bottle.
Yeah, because it's a Jira.
Right. Because one of the things, it's also we got so much of the time skipping was bouncing around the past. I kept thinking, oh, maybe this is their one foray into considerably into the future at the time, because we hadn't really got bounced. We kept bouncing 50 years back. What about 50 years later? That would have been. Obviously it wasn't 50.
Could have been the log carrying people. They were getting tired of being blown up and stuff. And they said, "We want to speak."
We're going to shoot at the principals.
And I know Sawyer was pissed that everyone drank all the beer.
That was funny.
We're like, we don't get health benefits, and they're throwing logs at them.
It's just one of those scenes where because I was like, oh, that's right. This is that episode where they get on the outrigger and we never get an answer. Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't ruin the show for me, but it's one of those things. I know that's a big complaint out there with people. It's not knowing who was in there, who was chasing him.
And I always felt that. I don't want to go. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of what mysteries were resolved and weren't, because we could spend 18 hours just on that alone. Right. However, this was one of the ones I always felt was kind of a valid concern. It's not like, say, if someone was a Sopranos fan and they were upset about not getting an answer to the Pine Barrens episode of what happened to the Russian. It was like, no, but that was
That's a legitimate gripe.
The Russian one is not. That was.
I always thought the Russian was going to pop up like the next season or something.
Yeah, but it's David J. screwing with you on that, even though he didn't write it. But that was a self-enclosed episode, whatever. Whereas this is like, okay, there are some things I'm all right with not knowing, and I get it. But by you not answering this, it bugs me because either you're telling me that you didn't even have an idea when you did this, and which kind of that kind of situation kind of annoys me, or you did it and it was like, oh, we just don't have time, we don't have a way to squeeze this fact in, which is a fault of the writing, that you couldn't find a way to work this detail in. And the writing on the show, by and large, is good enough that shouldn't have been an excuse. So this was, again, I wasn't angry about it, but I was kind of like, we're not going to get an answer about this?
Well, it could have been something that was abandoned. They were setting it up to be something in the future, and then the number of seasons, the number of episodes didn't allow them to explore whatever they had intended. So it just becomes an abandoned thread.
But at this point in the series, they knew how many episodes they had left.
Yeah. Also, David, you know what? I'm going to speak for. Oh, okay, gosh darn it! I'll say the majority of people who continue to watch Lost till the end, we would have been fine if they trimmed anybody's flash sideways or whatever they were called by a few minutes just to answer this. I could have had a little less of Locke as a teacher or Sawyer as a cop just to find out what happened here, because those were time wasters. Oh, did I say?
No question. It just feels to be like something they plan to do something with and then abandon for whatever the reason.
Because you can go look at all these unanswered theories that are out there, questions we have, but at least you could make a reasonable theory. You could make something. Okay, it could be that.
Right.
Here's like I have no idea because I have no idea. I mean, there's just no.
Well, there's so many viable possibilities. I mean, we can go from the craziest to it could be the others. It could be this group. It could be that group. It could be there's so many possibilities. And at the end of the day, as David was saying, it might be something they just abandoned because it didn't factor into the overall story they were telling, and that's fine. I mean, obviously that must be what happens. So we never got an answer. So I'm not angry about. I mean, at the time I was angry because I was like, "Tell me." Now I'm just like, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, if I can deal with the end, No Country for Old Men, I can deal with this. It's fine. Go ahead.
Anyway, I thought I'd bring that up because I know it's with a lot of Lost fans, it still bugs them. It's still one of those things because I think we all want, like I said, we all want to have that. Okay, I believe it could be this. But when I said I have no idea, I don't know.
Right.
It could have been the others. I don't have even a wild theory on what it could be.
I can't believe you don't have a wild theory.
I don't know. I always assumed they'd answer it. To be honest with you, because I know people were always asking about it. Because we get emails all the time. I go, I don't know. You're watching what I'm watching. I don't know.
Did you have any crackpot theories way back then?
I can't even remember. I don't know. I can't remember.
I think he probably thought it was Rose.
Yeah, it could have been Rose. Rose and Bernard they were coming out of retirement.
Because Rose would have shot one of them. Because Rose was an expert shot.
They were assassins. I'd watch that.
Then we have the great scene where we see Jin is alive, and who has rescued him?
Another group of people whose language he doesn't understand.
Yeah, poor Jin. He can't get away.
His life is a skipping record.
But Rousseau saves him. Rousseau and her crew, before she kills them all, has saved. Because when she tells him, then that ends with that look that you been talking about, Scott. It just, and it's just like, well, at least Jin's alive.
Yes.
And that, I think that made most of us happy. We said, one tell son, sorry, back off, son. Back off. But anyway,
that was a really big moment when it first aired. That was big stuff.
Oh, I'm sure we all have our memories when we first watched it, and I'm gonna say, because everyone here is pretty smart when it comes to this show. Once we were picking up on the French language, I think we all knew. I think we all knew it was coming, and basically what we were waiting to see is like, is it going to be that actress? Because that actress is a lot more attractive than she looked on the show. They kind of haggarded her up a bit there, or is it going to be someone playing a young? How? Because we don't know what time period it is. Or how long she had been, whatever. Right. I was like, okay, it's a different actress, but it doesn't matter. We know who it is. Can I ask one question? Because I'm not remembering, and because I haven't done the rewatch or whatever. You mentioned about her having. I kind of sort of remember her having to kill the other members of her party because they're all kind of going nuts. Were they What is it? They were suffering from the time displacement situation that other people were going nuts by, or was it something totally different? I don't remember.
I always think it was Rousseau going nuts. I don't think. If I remember correctly, I believe she was going crazy, not them, and she thought there was something wrong with them, and she started because she kept saying they have the illness, the sickness, and we never see a sickness. We never see that. Never happened. So. It's something that I thought, she was pregnant and there was other things going on and you're on this crazy island. And I think it was her nothing was wrong with her, her members of her team. She just killed them because she thought there was something wrong with them.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's how I remember it.
I thought maybe they were suffering from that whole time displacement thing that was, hence the nosebleeds or whatever.
Wasn't there two of them that, I can't remember. Wasn't there two of them that were like trying to kill each other or something? Like there was some sort of fight. Like there was one little thing we saw where they were, where it looked like maybe they could be a little bit nutty.
Right. It could be, but I'm trying to remember this.
Because he got pulled underneath. Didn't he one of them got pulled underneath? I don't know. I think it had something to do with the smoke monster because I remember you'd think after all the rewatches I had, remember thinking that, like you said, either she was the one going crazy or that these people had kind of done the route where so many other on the island have, where, the smoke monster takes the form of somebody who's died.
Right.
To manipulate somebody that's alive.
Yes.
And I thought maybe was the other.
That could be it too, yeah.
I forgot all about that.
Because because Jin's in a different time than everybody else.
Yeah. Was it 1988? Is that what there's 77, 88, and then current time, I think, were the jump zones.
So he's in, like I said, he's in his own little time zone. But anything else on this episode you guys want to talk about? Okay.
Oh gosh.
One thing I would like to touch on is because we did a little bit when we were talking about Locke telling them about when he saw the light on the hatch and letting that go, realizing that it wasn't a sign, it didn't mean anything, it was just a light. I
don't want to see that crazy guy in the hatch.
Right. But that pain was necessary to open his mind and get him where he is now. But we also see Kate has her form of that when she's talking to Jack, and she said that Sawyer's not dead, but he's gone.
Right.
And then when Sawyer sees her when they're jumping, and he tells Juliet that's done, it's gone. Right. So there's 3 different places where our main crew are starting to go, okay, that was then, this is now.
Jamie Jo just said hi to herself.
That would be my son.
I go, hi, Mom. Anyway, that was. I also wanted to. I mentioned too. If I was Jack, when Kate's, staking out the lawyer, would you have gotten in the car with Kate? Because bad things happen when Kate's driving.
No.
Right? Am I right?
Not on that rainy night.
But anyway, I thought it was definitely the best of the 2.
Yes.
I mean, I like Jughead, but this one, like I said, had a lot of, especially at the end where where Kate sees Ben and Sayid's like, Ben, he could, even though he's been working for Ben, it's just a crazy episode, and I really enjoyed it. So,
did anyone else wonder how Jack talked his way out of raising what Kate and I did for Aaron was totally necessary? And then she's like, "What are you talking about? How do you put that one back in the bottle?" How did he get out of that room without her going, "You're not leaving till you tell me who Aaron is"?
Right. We forgot that Claire's mom wasn't the one behind the case, because we all in fact I was trying to until I saw it again. That's right, she wasn't involved with it.
Right.
It was Ben, and I go, but it's just one of those great episodes. And
the thing I was trying to remember while I was watching, I think I might have, Jamie and I were messaging briefly when I had them on. It was my memory trying to wait, do we know this already, or has this not been revealed yet? And I was trying to remember the whole situation with Jack actually being related to Claire. And I was like, wait, has that been revealed yet or not? I can't remember. I still don't remember because I was watching
a few episodes beforehand.
Okay, because I was trying to watch the way she was interacting with Jack, and I was like, okay, they know each other. I was like, wait, she was at his father's funeral, and that's how
right? Yeah.
That okay, see, I can still remember.
I think he found out. I think he found out later on, though, didn't he? Did Ben tell him?
Not sure.
I just wasn't it?
Yeah, I just watched it.
See, I have an excuse. It's been over a decade.
Yeah, I have an excuse. It's been a couple weeks. So.
Meanwhile, you're gonna get all these reviews. Why do you have people on who don't remember the show?
But he does find out, and it's one of those twists where he goes, "Well, my dad's a drunk." But that's all I got.
I will echo what you said. I really of the two, I did like this episode better. And again, despite it being a Kate episode, it just hummed. I just really was enjoying it. I was totally engaged in everything we were watching. I even liked trying to remember. I was like, let's see if I can remember this without Googling it first. I was going, okay, The Little Prince. I was trying to remember the story of The Little Prince because, obviously it's been even a longer time since I read that. One would hope. And I was starting to remember, it's oh, wait, there's all these little lost analogies in The Little Prince, and it works for this. And plus, that little twerp is blonde too, so it works for that too. So I really kind of, it's a multifaceted episode that I really enjoy a lot about.
Yep.
Wow. It is like our podcast.
I agree with Brian.
There it is. Yep, Brian's not here. Scott's the surrogate Brian.
No, I mean any episode where Ben is kind of the evil mastermind, I always enjoyed. Where you find out he's really pulling all the strings with these folks while they're off the island. It was cool. And it's totally a character, right?
Yeah.
Well, he told everything he learned about him on the island.
Yeah. Well, he told Jack a few weeks ago, because Locke, did you see Locke? He told Ben, did you see Locke off the island? And Ben goes, no, I didn't. I killed him, but I didn't see him.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Are you guys mentioning your podcast? You guys want to promote your podcast and talk about it? Yep. The Yep podcast.
Oh, you, buddy. Go for it.
All righty. Well, we've got this little podcast called the Serious TV Drama Podcast. Some people call it the STVD podcast for short. Jamie appears on it quite frequently as either my co-host or one of a couple co-hosts. Our friend Brian, the lawyer, has just finished doing covering Perry Mason with me, and the usual co-host, except he hasn't really watched much TV over the last couple of years, so that's why I keep jettisoning him. Is your friend and mine, everybody's favorite serial killer, Dan. So it's, again, you can find us on Facebook, Serious TV Drama Podcast. A lot of, I would say there's been probably 9 or 10 different people who have appeared on it over the years, and they're almost all Jay and Jack people, including you yourself. We've even shown up a couple times. So yeah, we profile TV shows like Better Call Saul or the upcoming Fargo or Perry Mason. That's kind of what we do. Unlike this cast, there may be some cursing, but it's a lot of fun. We could be a bit more professional about it, but it's still a pretty good listen, depending what show we're covering, I think.
It's even better when we don't have to re-record the entire episode.
I think that's happened to everybody. And God, do you want to promote the Cubs?
Hey,
No.
they lost 3 in a row.
We're coming for you.
Great
Yeah,
weekend.
they were, they were 13-3. Now they're 13-6. So no, let's not talk about the Cubs tonight.
My Padres have lost 5 straight.
Scott.
They lost 5 in a row, right? Oh,
Yeah. Well, their bullpen is just terrible.
I'm legitimately. I mean, outside, Glatfelter's situation excluded, I'm actually rooting for them in the National League. So,
Yeah.
they
got the best young player in the game, Fernando Tatis.
Yeah,
Half of ours is out with COVID.
They got the best uniforms in the game, right?
Finally went back to Brown. Oh, you're a Cardinals fan, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Now, okay, I'll ask you this.
One in every room.
Because I was listening to some sports radio show, and they were saying, because they were asking the question, because the Cardinals have played. They're played 9 games so far or something like that?
Yeah. They had like a 14-day break in there.
I said,
They went to right?
Yeah, they said, well, how many games should the Cardinals have to play to qualify? And then people are like, 35, 40. I go, no, 60. I go, it's only a 60-game season. I go, I'm sorry that the Cardinals had that bad break. My dad was a huge
Do you know what they're doing with that?
Love the Cardinals.
The Cubs are playing double headers with them, 7-inning games. The next time they meet them, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now I go. It's already the season's already going to have an asterisk next to it. Most people are going to say, okay, yeah, they won the World Series, big deal, 60 games. Can you imagine if the Cardinals played 35 games and went on to, and they could, and what they won the World Series? People would be just like, okay, baseball, I'm done with it. They have to play. I don't care what it is. They have to play 60 games.
The way things are going, I think that the winner of the World Series might be COVID.
Yeah.
We're not going to have enough players at the end. We'll have enough players to get whatever 2 teams we can put together with the leftover players.
Has there been more beyond the Marlins and the?
Oh, the Reds have tested positive. Another team had a player test positive. The games were delayed because this weekend because something. I can't remember what team it was though. Because I don't know.
I mean, how are they going to play football? That's what I don't get. I mean, those guys, those linemen are sweating all over each other. And
it's going to be a horrible mess.
There's no way. But college football is already canceling everything, which means college basketball is going to be right behind it. I'm shocked that they've attempted. I mean, I'm happy they're doing the baseball.
Oh yeah.
I'm because it's giving me. I enjoy watching it, but it's just like, do I need the frustration though? My Padres, the bullpen was supposed to be their strength. They're terrible.
The rental car companies are grateful for it.
Right.
I was reading how many rental cars, like the Cardinals are using 41 rental cars now for touring because they can't do buses. And I'm just thinking, like, this is actually great for these rental car companies because they feel like everyone else is losing business through this. So.
Down here in Florida, the rental car companies actually lease space from the BB&T Center, which is where the Panthers play, because they didn't have enough space at the airport to store all the cars because they were never all turned in at once like they are now.
Yeah, my brother lives in Maui, and he said it's kind of the same thing with all the rental cars there because they don't have the tourists coming in, that there's just a field of rental cars.
Yeah,
Well, the interesting thing also, or unfortunate thing, is you've got, obviously, number one, you've got the COVID-19 situation and how that's, it knocks some teams, out of for like weeks on end. But the other thing that's happened because of the way they had to quickly ramp things up again with the summer camp situation, there are so many more injuries now across the sport than ever before. I think there was a stat, and I'm not going to get the exact numbers right, but there are literally in the first, whatever it was, 15, 20 games, there are 3 times as many pitchers who have gone onto the IL. It was like 50-something compared to like
56 pitchers, and it was like 18 is the norm.
Right.
And I remember talking to Jay. I said the biggest problem they're going to have with this this season is these guys have been sitting around here for months. I go, the pitchers are not going to be in game shape. They're just not. And I go, I wouldn't risk my Padres have some young pitchers. I mean, they're fantastic pitchers. I go, I don't know if I'd risk them on this short season because, and we just lost our top reliever. He's done for the season.
Gates is done for the season?
Yeah. Rumor is he has bone chips and he's going to have surgery. He's done. It wasn't Tommy John, so that was good. But, it's just like, and they've lost a couple players now. Two of our outfielders probably hurt. I thought the players were right not to try. Only thing I think the players were trying to do, we'll start this season. We go for a couple of weeks, and then we'll get our full pay. Yeah, and then COVID will shut it down.
Close it down,
but now it's still going on, and these guys are getting hurt, and I don't think it's worth it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd use the phrase game shape, though you're not wrong about that, because I think to a certain extent the pitchers were actually surprisingly ahead of the game. It was the hitters who kind of the first week or two, your Charlie Blackmons and a few other players aside, were kind of flailing away, and the pitchers were already kind of like where they need to. However, to go with what you're saying, whereas maybe they had built up the necessary arm strength, because it was just, pitchers could keep themselves, in shape. Because that was one of the striking things. I mean, I think it applies to all teams. I mean, I know for my specific baseball team, it was certainly the case that we were like, a lot of us remarked, I can't believe how good a shape, these players are in. Because everyone else, we all, gained like 30 pounds, whereas, a couple of guys on my team look like they all lost 15 or 20 pounds, and they kind of streamlined. Did it stop certain players from getting injured? No. So it's one thing to be, I'm in great shape. But if you haven't built yourself up for, the rigors of playing the game, which is always going to be different than hitting off a tee or throwing in your backyard, that's where but I do worry for so many players that you hope these are just like brief stints and no one's risking their career. I mean, even though one could say they're even risking their life by doing the whole COVID-19 thing. Right. I mean, I'm so on the fence with what's been going on because having gone that many months without baseball, and baseball is a big thing for me, I was just thrilled to see baseball again. I don't care if there are no fans there. I don't like most other fans anyway, so it didn't bother me.
New York of you.
No. I don't like Yankees. I'm a Yankee fan who hates other Yankee fans.
I would like to see one pitcher walk off the mound and tip his cap to the crowd.
My favorite. The thing that your guy did now. Well, now he's your guy. That Kipnis did when they were in Cleveland this week. That's one of the funniest things I've seen in the whole baseball season. Jason Kipnis had been on the Indians, now he's on the Cubs. And when the Cubs played the first games at Cleveland, because he acted like they were the crowd was giving him, and it was like he was waving his hat at all the cardboard cutouts, and just everyone was just cracking up. And it's like, oh, I didn't know Jason Kipnis was that funny. That's excellent. Or you see like Andrew McCutcheon like giving people a ball. Giving cardboard cutouts to ball and stuff.
So they put Weekend at Bernie's guy, as one of the cardboard cutouts. I'm like, that's a trolling masterful move.
I think it was Kansas City did that.
Meanwhile,
they don't have else going on.
They should do that in the Cubs. They should have a Bartman.
Yeah,
someone else. And he reached and he's back in the cardboard cutout.
You got to bring that up. I was having a perfectly good day.
Someone in another city, I don't remember which it was, had a Bartman cutout because they had.
Oh, did they?
I saw it on the MLB Network. They had it like at the last call gag, and I remember going, "That would have been funny if it was at Wrigley." I was like, although I bet they would never do that at Wrigley because I'd be like, "That's too painful."
They could put the goat next to him.
I mean, my team's one of the few that hasn't done the cardboard cutout thing, and I'm on the fence about it because originally I thought it was kind of stupid, but now I find it so funny.
Well, New York, they can be hysterical.
Well, like the Mets are doing it, so they have it, but the Yankees, because it's the Yankees.
I still think the people behind home plate though should be like this with their phone because they pay for these expensive seats, and all you do is see, and then going. I've said there should be a rule in Major League Baseball that if you wave to the camera on your phone, you get thrown out. Because you're paid, what, $500 for those seats? Watch the damn game.
Yeah.
They should have a cutout of me from like the early 90s where I would go to games and I'd be reading a book the whole time. They were really bad in the early 90s.
You don't know what really bad is.
I know.
Oh, I do.
Well, yeah. Well.
Hey, you finally won a World Series. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it did happen, but
luckily for you, you didn't play the Padres that year in the playoffs. So. Anyway, we're still recording. It became a Ramblecast, but I'd like to thank you all for joining us. It was joining me. This was great. A lot of fun, and that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for joining us.
It was great talking to other adults without having to wear a mask. It's wonderful.
I was going to bring my mask and put it on just to make you smile at the beginning.
I actually have my hazmat suit mask from Breaking Bad. I was going to put it on because I was watching one of the older Lost episodes, the one with Desmond coming out. I was thinking, I should put that on. It'll be really funny.
When you talk to Faraday.
But I was too busy putting on shorts, so I couldn't do it.
Well, if we had our choice, I'm glad you put on the shorts.
Well, yeah. A nation thanks me.
All right, guys. We're out of here.
Have a good one.
Namaste.
Bye.